Here's Brody Brazil.
I already know there's going to be a lot of people intrigued by the topic of this video alone and a potential comeback of the Montreal Expos. But to take that concept seriously, it's got to start somehow, somewhere, some way, and most importantly, with someone. Because nothing gets off the ground unless somebody actually starts making that happen. It's been 20 years, we've heard whispers of this and that, but now there's something to be taken seriously, and it comes from Ashkan Karbasfrooshan, who, by the way, has agreed to chat with me. I'm scheduled to do an interview with Ash on all of his background, on everything he's trying to put together here. He's spelled it out in a recent blog. He's also been quoted on social media and in other places, but we'll get it directly from Ash in an interview on this channel, by the way, sooner than later. Can't wait for that. But let me give you Ash's quick bio. He was living and working in Montreal when the Expos left in 2004. This touched him very much personally, and coincidentally, a year later, he founded WatchMojo, which is an independent media company. If you're not familiar, they do high-quality productions. They're very prominent. In fact, here on YouTube, I'd be surprised if a lot of you aren't already subscribing to WatchMojo. But the Expos' departure and WatchMojo being founded, from what I understand, were kind of directly related in his life timeline. So that's interesting. It's also interesting that the recent Expos documentary that came out on Netflix, he was reinvigorated by that to do something, to get something going, to maybe take a look in the mirror and see where he stood in life and maybe some of the connections he's got to try and be the initial person to get some momentum started here, to gather a team, to gather some resources, and to ultimately bring the Expos back. It was the Expos documentary, from what I understand, that got him going again. He's now beginning, in his own words, to explore the opportunity of putting together the pieces and bringing back the Montreal Expos. Ash posted this on X, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now. We're just kind of getting around to understanding what's happening here and what he's doing. 20 years ago, when the Montreal Expos left, I felt powerless. I was a young radio host trying to help keep MLB here, but I had no real influence. That moment pushed me towards entrepreneurship. Since then, WatchMojo has grown into one of the largest independent media platforms in the world. We reach 100 million people a month. That doesn't mean I could bring baseball back to Montreal on my own. Far from it. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm at least in a position to consider contributing to that effort with the right partners. An MLB franchise requires capital, political alignment, real estate vision, community buy-in, and a lot of humility. And as WatchMojo goes through its own M&A process, several groups have approached us about sports and media collaborations. It makes you think. MLB is investing in digital media, sports content, and entertainment are converging. Timing is interesting. For 20 years, I would say that I started WatchMojo to bring back the Expos. Now I'm actually in a position to explore it. Ignoring that possibility feels insincere. I don't know where this goes, maybe nowhere, but I didn't become an entrepreneur to be a spectator again. Montreal, if MLB ever returned, would you support a new Expos team? Take the poll and survey in the replies. So that was on social media, but Ash also posted this on his own personal blog. He's calling this Project Peanut, the return of the Expos, and I don't know why it's called that. But again, when we chat, that is definitely going to be one of my questions. And to reiterate, some of the points are repeated here, but I really want to break them down one by one. When he says none of this means I could bring a baseball team back to Montreal on my own, far from it. I think that is an initial great place to start, to realize that he may be the connector of all the other important people, because you need political alignment, real estate, you need investors, you need so much more than just one person to get something like this done. The fact that he's already acknowledging that, I think is a huge step, because I think a lot of people take this on and say, I'll do this, I'll be the person. No. You need to be kind of the point guard in all this, the facilitator of everybody else. An MLB franchise is one of the most complex undertakings imaginable. Totally agree with that, because to his point, capital, like how much money you need to start this. Are we talking $5 to $7 to $8 billion for a stadium, an expansion fee, actually funding the team for the first decade or so? You need real estate, right? You need a place to put this stadium in Montreal, a winning outlook like, oh yeah, you actually have to build a baseball team here too, patience, and a lot of humility. Each comes with its own set of challenges. Totally agree with that. Taking on this project, right, is pretty intimidating. The disruption of streaming, he says on his website, the streaming rights and digital fandom has changed the playing field. But those who want to capitalize on these trends lack certain ingredients. And it's amazing, right? Because you've got a lot of sports teams, baseball teams, without even fully functioning television networks anymore and distribution platforms. And here Ash is with Watch Mojo, which reaches, like he says, 100+ million people per month. Imagine the collaboration of distributing your own games on your own platform, which is already built. I mean, that's a huge head start that not a lot of big league teams already have. That made me think, maybe Montreal deserves another chapter in its baseball story. And maybe, to his point, the right mix of partners could make it possible. And if you've seen the documentary What Killed the Expos on Netflix, you understand that it was the wrong mix of partners. Almost 2 or 3 times over, that is what killed the Montreal Expos. Wasn't the fans, wasn't the region, wasn't interest in baseball. It was literally the wrong mix of partners 3 times over, approximately. Bringing baseball back to Montreal would be meaningful. It would also be incredibly hard. And this next sentence is very short but very powerful. Maybe even impossible. That's tough to swallow when you take on something like this. And for somebody who has a personal connection and witnessed them going away, and it feels like, and I'll talk to him about this, maybe a little bit traumatized about the departure of the Expos for years down the road, decades down the road, but to have to acknowledge the fact that I'm going to give this my best shot, and even still, it's out of my control, it's out of our control, I think that's a great realization. But if I may be candid, the more I study the opportunity and survey the landscape, the only real curveball I see is MLB awarding Montreal a franchise slot. Other challenges are complex, but solvable. Right? Because it takes 2 to tango. You could build this amazing pitch. You could have everything lined up. Politicians, real estate, the right people, the right investors. You could have all that squared away. But it takes 2 to tango. It takes Major League Baseball to, in fact, award you an expansion franchise, to be ready for expansion. And at this point, baseball has a potential work stoppage on the horizon. Maybe all of this timing, quite honestly, of baseball not expanding yet and being delayed by several different things, being delayed by the A's situation and the Rays situation, maybe this is one of those things that's timing out perfectly so that Montreal can get its ducks in a row and then ultimately be a realistic candidate along with probably Nashville, probably Salt Lake City, probably Portland, and beyond. In the summer of 2012, I attended a Washington Nationals game in their beautiful open-air stadium. As in, the team that the Expos became, the Washington Nationals. Attending a Nats game may have felt blasphemous to some Expos diehards, but for me, it brought closure. So we're talking about less than 10 years following their departure from Montreal. I don't know if I'd have the heart to do that. And speaking from firsthand experience of the Athletics leaving Oakland and going to Sacramento and beyond, again, he went and did this. Maybe there is that right time for somebody to have that type of closure. And Ash is already far down the line in this process. It brought Ash closure. Until Netflix released What Killed the Expos, which I broke down on Watch Mojo's Inside podcast, slowly but surely, I began to hear a calling. Isn't that amazing? The documentary that we all watched about a month or so ago come out, and a lot of people were talking about it, and it specifically got back to him and is the genesis of maybe pushing something new forward here. This is powerful. On my deathbed, I'd have comfort knowing I explored impossibility rather than ignored opportunity. Wow. That was my original reason for pursuing entrepreneurship in the first place. After all, I have no idea where this journey leads. It may go nowhere, but I didn't become an entrepreneur to be a spectator again. This is Ash talking about his ambitions of just giving it a shot, his best shot to try and get the Montreal Expos back in Major League Baseball. And why not shoot your shot, if nothing else? He also went into detail here about what it actually takes. I do think this is important. This is kind of the blueprint of what needs to happen here. When I think about what is required for a credible bid for a baseball team, a few ingredients come to mind. Financing, a global promotional platform, local and international partnerships, real estate vision and execution, patience, persistence, resilience, and strategic sequencing. A genuine sports fan. Oh yeah, by the way, somebody's got to love the Expos and all this. Hard work doesn't just happen. You have to have a passion behind it. A genuine sports fan who understands team play and winning. And someone who can engage MLB while serving Montreal's distinct bilingual community, right? So it's a unique community, but you also have to be pushing baseball to make this happen. You can do all the parts on your own, but unless there's somebody out there to try and be that bridge between baseball, it may not happen. If MLB chooses to expand and is seeking someone credible to bring these pieces together, I'm confident I can put my best foot forward. But sequencing matters, and so does listening. He also went on to say if Expos fans were looking for their spaceman, they may have struck gold. Like I said at the start of this video, it takes a somehow, some way, somewhere, but it also takes a someone to get all that started. Ash might be that someone. As I continue to explore and study the opportunity, I would appreciate input from my Montreal network. And so now we get to some takeaways here. I want to start with my own personal thoughts and observations on Montreal as an expansion franchise. I felt in recent years that they've been disrespected in not getting a first crack at another chance. It's amazing that baseball wouldn't instantly talk about, all right, if there is expansion, we like Nashville out east, but we probably do have to think about Montreal. Is there a right situation there? It's obviously worked to some certain and large degree there when things were right. Could that be a possibility? Montreal has grown even since the Expos were in town. But it's amazing that we talk about all these other cities as prominent candidates for expansion, and I get it. Nashville is attractive. Nashville is sexy. Salt Lake City and Portland already have a ton of money, public money lined up for these opportunities, but it's crazy that nobody would even throw Montreal a bone and put them in the same conversation. Like, why not at this point? I also like the approach of Ash, who, again, I have yet to meet, and I can't wait for the scheduled interview that we're going to do. I like the sensible and honest and straightforward approach here because he's not trying to promise you anything. He's telling you this might not even happen despite best efforts, trying to set a bar but have it be in a reasonable spot. And he's going to try his best, but doesn't want to lead anybody on in the wrong direction. I like that. I like the team aspect of it. I like the concept of this. Now, it's got to go places, and there do have to be tangible things that get put together and things that happen in time, in sequence, as he says. But I like the concept of this on paper. Major League Baseball and getting an expansion team, if you think what that's going to cost, if you realize what that's going to cost, it's an insane amount of money. If we're talking about expansion fees that might be $3 billion, $4 billion by the time this is even a possibility, you've got to build a ballpark for probably $2 billion. Now you're up to 5 to 6. The cost of running a team for a couple years, or maybe you want to stash aside a decade worth of spending, that's at least another $1 billion until you start to make a bunch of money in return. So we're talking about something of like 7, 8, 9 maybe $billion when you really start to think about the bigger picture. That's a lot of resources, and I'm not saying there aren't people out there in Montreal who want to invest, but that's going to be difficult. I also think the timing of this might work out in favor of a Montreal baseball fan. The fact that Rob Manfred only has several more years of being commissioner, maybe there is somebody new who will be seated as the top person in Major League Baseball who feels more passionate about bringing the Expos back. Clearly, Manfred has never really leaned into that, and he's representing all the owners. He doesn't want to commit to anything, but maybe the next person who is in charge feels more passionate about the Expos. Wouldn't that be great? Maybe that's another aspect of the timing here. I'm wishing all of this with Project Peanut and Ash and the Montreal Expos and their fans. I'm wishing this two things. Number one, luck, because I think they'll need it as much as there's dedication and determination and getting the wheels in motion here. I wish them luck because some things are out of their control, but I also wish them progress, right? Because if this starts now and it's all of a sudden 2026 and then turns into 2027 and it's 2028 and nothing's really happened, well, it kind of fizzes out and then we forget about this. It's so important to have early luck, but also early progress in this. Some tangible steps forward so that this is actually a thing. This is actually a push. Quite honestly, I wish Oakland were doing something like this already, but they're not. It's taken Montreal, not 20 years because there have been other talks, but this might be the first serious one, and it's taken about 20 years since the Expos' departure. So luck and progress are the two things I wish for Ash and Project Peanut. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Also, thumbs up down there while you're here. That helps me, this video, and this channel. And I'd love to get you back next time. If you're new here, it's nice to meet you. Hit that subscribe button like right now so I can see you for the next one.